The following presentation is brought to you by the Pride of ODU, the official NIL collective of Old Dominion Athletics. Be a monarchist. Join the Pride. Welcome to episode 1 of Around the Throne. To give you an idea of what this show is meant to be, being a millennial and Aaron being a Gen Xer, we've been big fans.
I thought you were going to call me a boomer right off the bat.
No, I know my generations.
Okay, good. I'm not ready to be that old.
We were big fans of PTI and Around the Horn. We're sad to see that Around the Horn is canceled and gone. But we thought it was our opportunity to use this off-season kind of dead period to talk about some fun topics in a debate format, but maybe not as annoying as like Stephen A. Smith or, try to avoid the vitriol that those shows kind of have and make this kind of more of a fun show like PTI or Around the Horn and focus completely on Old Dominion Athletics. So we're doing that with this. We're going to try to keep it light, have fun with this. We hope you enjoy it. If you have topics you want talked about in future episodes, please send your submissions in, and we will do that. But before we go any further, we have to introduce our first guest. Obviously, Aaron, my usual co-host, is going to be contestant number 1. And second contestant is Justice. You know him from the G5 Hive and from his help at theprideofodu.com. He's been fantastic helping us write about football this offseason. He's going to continue helping out, and we're excited to have him. Welcome, fellas. How y'all doing?
Doing awesome, man. I'm so excited to do this, Mike. I've been in your ear to do this for so long. People are always asking our opinions on things. Not that that counts for anything, but I think it's just fun to have the discussion, talk about what we think, or make us talk about something that we don't believe in, but just fostering that discussion on all things Old Dominion sports. I think it's going to be an awesome time.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the invite. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to doing a show where I don't have to do like a show sheet. I don't have to do video editing. I don't have to make Instagram reels and YouTube shorts. So I'm all for it, man. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So, given that, topic 1, realignment. Conference realignment is the fad topic of the day, with Texas State's departure to the Pac from the Sun Belt, leaving us with 13 teams in our beloved Sun Belt Conference. Obviously, I think we all agree that the Sun Belt should be patient here and see what happens with the AAC. If it collapses, great. Maybe the TV contract goes into the toilet, and we have a chance to grab a school like ECU or maybe even a Tulane. But let's throw that out and say that is not happening, right? And you have 2 options from Conference USA. Because we know it's not going to be Liberty. Private schools don't belong in a public school conference. There's just too much going away. So I'm going to give you guys both a team that you have to make the case for. And I'm going to decide on who is going to do that.
I like it.
But right. I have a question first. Who is comfortable doing a Foghorn Leghorn impression?
You have to tell me who Foghorn Leghorn is. I'm not, because I don't know who that is.
What are you saying, boy?
All right. So we know the answer is Justice. All right, Justice. You are Foghorn Leghorn.
Oh man,
you are defending Louisiana Tech. Tell us why Louisiana Tech should be the next member of the Sun Belt.
You want me to do it in a Foghorn Leghorn voice the whole time?
As much as you can.
No extra credit, though.
You you can do the
That's gonna be
intro,
tough. That's
or
tough,
you can,
man.
yeah,
Well,
it's tough.
'cause, like the only thing like when I think of Foghorn Leghorn, like I just think of like the constant stuttering. That's kind of like what I think of, you know.
All right. Well, how about you do this for us? Do you got a Cajun accent in there, or maybe a Southern lawyer?
I'll do my best. I'll do my best.
Because to me, Foghorn Leghorn is I see. Like it's kind of like Goofy mixed with that Southern lawyer. You
I'll
can
do my best. I'll do my
together.
best. All right. Well, when I think about Louisiana Tech, I think about their rich history in football. You go back to the Golden Bomber and Terry Bradshaw, and before that, you got Phil Robertson, the founder of Duck Commander. Like, it doesn't get any better than that, boys. Like, I mean, those two guys are legends. And and then you look at women's basketball. Like they back in the day, the Lady Texters were right there with the Lady Monarchs in terms of national prestige. And so they have a lot of rich history. Now maybe they've fallen on hard times here most recently, but maybe, just maybe, them jumping back into the Sun Belt provides them the energy, the boost to that fan base that they desperately need to kind of revive that that legend status that they had not so many years ago, much like Old Dominion did, especially in women's basketball. I think it's a creates a natural rivalry. They have Louisiana Monroe, the Raging Cajuns. Now that neither one of them might not want the Bulldogs in the Sun Belt with a third team from Louisiana, but boy, like, you talk about like some heated games, some heated rivalries. It's ready made right there for the taking, and it taking on Louisiana Tech also goes with the Sun Belt theme of regionality and geography. It actually, with Texas State leaving, bringing Louisiana Tech on board, it shrinks that, makes it an even more regional conference, and I think that's what separates, or part of what separates the Sun Belt from the other G5s, is that they have this close knit geography, this regional feel that maintains these rivalries on an annual basis, and I think that is probably the biggest selling point for Louisiana Tech.
Great job, Justice. The accent you started out fantastic with. I don't blame you for it fading away, but you did a great job. I thank you for attempting it, and you delivered it well. Like Louisiana Tech, what is it? 35 miles from Monroe.
Yeah, like
Obviously not
30.
far.
34,
Yeah,
34.
it's close.
That could be a fun rivalry game made for TV. Um, Obviously, their baseball has been fantastic for the most part for the last 10 years. And this is a great baseball conference. So they kind of fit into that Western like culture.
If I
For
can make
sure.
one more point, like, they also kind of fit in this mold of what I'll say of, like, I don't know the best way to describe it, but I'll use Tulane as an example. If Tulane was to come to the Sun Belt, to me, that just feels like you're just waiting for that shoe to drop for them to leave, right? They're just waiting for that invite to the, I don't know, back Big 12, whatever.
They're
Um, and,
also a
and, and
private.
well, they are a private school, but I just feel like they are, to me, that's the biggest issue with, like, some of these other options, is that they're just, and that's how I always felt in Conference USA. When we were in Conference USA, to me it always felt like it was every man for themselves, right? There was no unity, there was no unified vision. And I feel like the Sun Belt embraces, hey, we are what we are, and we're going to be the best at what we are. And I think, a team like Louisiana Tech, I think they add to that. I don't think they detract from that in any way.
I think that phrase you're looking for is doing more with less. Because the West, if you compare the West budgets to the East, they're all pretty much smaller by and large than the Eastern teams. So the West kind of has that mentality of trying to do more with less. Uh, However, three schools in the same state, a state that has had their own financial issues, kind of is scary. What happens if Louisiana has some sort of really tough governmental decisions, and we're dealing with three schools dealing with deep cuts? That hurts the league a lot. But before we go too far into discussing Louisiana Tech, Aaron, you're you're going to be making the case for Western Kentucky as Colonel Sanders. You got a Colonel Sanders in there for me?
Uh, I don't know. All I can think of is the character that kind of looks like Colonel Sanders in Waterboy. You know, I I don't know. His finger looking good. Is the Western Kentucky? Uh, Maybe they serve some of my Kentucky Fried Chicken in the student center. I really don't know. I do not have a good Colonel Sanders. I don't even. Colonel Sanders not even alive anymore. If I was Colonel
Right.
Sanders, would I get a Carl Bobby doll if Louisiana Tech joins the Sun Belt?
How about we do this? We can go with the Southern lawyer again, since we have two Southern schools. If you have trouble finding that voice, just try to make it sound like you have a couple marbles in your mouth.
All right, I get the guys from the Western Kentucky podcaster to be mad. You're making me do this, so let me try to get into that little bit of a Southern accent. Um, Justice, you made a really compelling case for Louisiana Tech, but I'm saying as much as you think that it would be a good thing for them to have three schools there in a very close proximity, and that it's regional in nature, I think that Western Kentucky is a better complement from a regional nature, is because we don't need three schools from a single state, any state in this conference. Western Kentucky is a better travel partner, arguably for both sides. Um, the history is rich with Western Kentucky. I cannot do this well. The, the history with Western Kentucky is strong. I mean, obviously, we've got a lot of history with basketball. We saw on social media recently where folks were talking about, um, that game that we were all at while we were down 21 points and we came back from 21-0. Those games were always battles. We love to cheer against Western Kentucky. Um, but I think that was because of the respect for their programs. Their programs were always good, as much as we wanted a bad math. Rick Stansbury, and whether he did things above board or not, it was always going to be a battle, no matter whether it was in basketball or football. They've got multiple championships. They won. The footballs won 2015 and 2016 in Conference USA. We had a hell of a time playing those guys until that one weird game. I don't know how many, the ending with the long field goal and all that kind of stuff. From a basketball perspective, they won the Conference USA Tournament Championship in 24, went to the tournament. I mean, this is baseball, arguably not nearly as strong as Louisiana Tech. So, obviously, that would be a consideration there. Now, you can't understate that the Western Kentucky forensics team won the national championship in 2025. So this is very important. We're looking for students as well as just athletes. So who doesn't like a great debate or forensics team? There's a lot of bad blood in the Sun Belt with Louisiana Tech. Not so much, not on our end, but a lot of the other folks on how things went down years ago. That's not the case with Western. I think that most of the folks in the West would be okay with Western, and all the folks in the East, and then Arkansas State on the other side, would probably be happier with Western. I think it would be a more cohesive conference. And I'm going to piggyback on what you said, Justice. Like, I don't think that Western is going to be looking for the next big thing. I think they would be very happy. They wanted to be in this conference already. So, uh, their brother didn't um, in Middle Tennessee, but I think Western sees the value. I think Louisiana Tech is just looking for a way out, whereas I think Western sees it as a very good compliment, and I don't disagree at all.
A couple of things. Western Kentucky creates a divisional problem, I believe. Um, they fit more in the East. They're kind of on an island in the West. How does that fit together? Like, do you move a team in the East to the West, and you take Western Kentucky into the East? That kind of creates its own issue.
Like a Georgia State, perhaps.
Perhaps, but then now you're really making the East a real grind by taking out maybe the weakest team in the East and adding another formidable opponent in Western Kentucky to the East. Um, I don't. It's just kind of a weird fit. Looking at this whole situation, it almost makes more sense to me to add both Middle,
Oh,
Western, and Louisiana Tech. You go to 16, you get 8 and 8. You give them their rival. It continues that whole thing. You got to make it more. Then you can maybe consider do keep divisions. Maybe you go to pod play. There's a chance for us to make this even more regional if we want to, and that's what pod play would bring. Um, Maybe you can keep the two divisions, but you still have the pod play, right? I don't know. It's you can get really interesting with this if you think about it and get crazy with it. Um, but obviously, we kind of want to be patient and see if the AAC collapses because that makes our decisions even easier. Now we talked about like the three teams in one state. Um, with the AAC collapsing, a good school like a UAB that's public might become available. Do you make a different decision on Alabama having three teams in one state for Alabama? Because that's a good program at UAB that fits in really well with the Sun Belt. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think like UAB would be a great addition if the AAC kind of like if you see Memphis and Tulane kind of leave, which I think is what it's going to take for a shakeup to happen in the AAC. One thing I want to add real quick about Western Kentucky, and I think Aaron missed the most important point of why we want Western Kentucky. They have arguably
the
the
crappiest
coolest.
helmets.
Nope. The coolest mascot in all of college football.
Oh, come on,
Big
man.
Red. Big Red's pretty friggin' awesome.
This should have been the topic to argue the stupidity. We saw that guy up close at the bowl game. He's like the red grimace.
Who was first,
pretty
Grimace
cool.
or Big Red?
Who's cooler? Oh, who was first, Grimace or Big Red? I don't know. I think Big Red was probably first over Grimace, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't know the honest answer, but I just like I don't know. Like to me, like Big Red's one of the coolest mascots in all of college football. Like so much so that and not to hijack the topic, but they Western. I'm pretty good friends with someone that works at Western. She does a lot of social media stuff for them, and a lot of photography, and they bought one of those like big noggin hats. I didn't realize it was one of those big noggin hats. I thought it was just a regular hat, but it had just the eyes on there, and like I went to their website looking to see where I could buy that hat. Like as an Old Dominion fan, I was going to legitimately buy that hat, but it's not. They don't make one yet. But anyway, like the point being, I think Big Red is a pretty cool mascot, and I hope whatever the Sun Belt does, I hope they don't drop divisions. Like to me, like we're the only FBS team or conference that still has divisions, and I think that kind of sets us apart. I think it'd be a mistake for it to go away. But to your point, yeah, I think UAB would be a great addition. East Carolina, Navy. I think there's a lot of the teams I don't think would be great additions would be the teams that left. Like the
West
I don't know, the Florida Atlantic, Well, I'm thinking the teams that left Conference USA and joined the AAC. Sorry.
Charlotte.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
teams, like I could care less about them. Like I want like the East Carolinas, Navies, UABs, those
But if you
teams.
but if you game theory this and talk about patience, we are not far away from some major shakeups in the next 5 years.
Well, just in
Uh,
terms of the college football
Yeah,
landscape as a whole,
2030, right?
absolutely.
2030?
you're talking about 2030 with the AAC
When
and
the
the
yeah,
ACC, which is going to start all of it.
the ACC is absolutely going to be the linchpin. That's going to be like when the Clemsons and the Florida States of the world leave and join the Big Ten or the SEC, then at that point the Big Ten or the SEC are going to do their own thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're right.
Perhaps, but we're talking about the Sun Belt.
Yeah.
And that's going to create an opportunity for the Sun Belt and the AAC to perhaps get really interesting in that point in time. And who's going to be stronger? It's going to be really, that's something I have on the mind. Maybe you stay at 13. You pay everyone a little bit more money. There's so many different options that the Sun Belt can go with here. And
Yeah, I
we
mean,
could
I think to your point, patience is the key, right? Like there should be no sense of urgency to add a Western Kentucky or Louisiana Tech right now. Those teams aren't going anywhere. Um, and I'll throw another team in the mix too if folks want to stay in the state of Texas. That's Sam Houston State. Um,
Too
you know,
far. Too far.
I
we're
don't.
an old,
I'm just saying,
we're an
like,
old,
but
hey, we're an Old Dominion podcast, and what we learned in Conference USA is we have no business being in a conference with Texas teams. We've learned this.
I think it does help from recruiting, at least, But
How
I was
many
just throwing that
Texas
out there.
have landed in the 10 years that we've been in conferences with Texas teams?
Well, just women's basketball, but
Yeah, there's a lot of women's
That's a
basketball.
different story because we
that's a
got
different story. Yeah.
we got a foothold in Texas at women's basketball.
I mean,
But
it's not like I said UTEP guys all the way on the other side of Texas.
Yeah.
all right,
Jacksonville State's another good one too, right? I mean,
Alabama, another Alabama,
it
right?
is another Alabama.
I mean, you can get
Not
really
Florida.
you think about letting the teams kind of develop a little bit more in Conference USA. Now you're talking about maybe a Delaware, maybe a Missouri State. Like they can get really interesting really fast. But
Yeah.
that's why
I
I
don't know.
think
No rush.
Be patient, rake in the money a little bit. It's important with rev share, strengthen everybody, and wait for an opportunity.
all right, we could talk about realignment all day because it is a very interesting topic, and it's why there's so many college football fans that there's some guys that just only talk about realignment all the time because the game theory, the long term strategy of conference realignment gets really crazy and interesting.
Yeah.
But we're here to do more than one topic. So let's go to our next topic scheduling. So recently, Old Dominion men's basketball released their schedule on the prideofu.com. We know now who we're playing in the MAC. We know the A10 thing, where we weren't allowed to play A10 teams for a little while. It's kind of done with. We got Richmond back on the schedule. We got George Mason back on the schedule. We got George Washington on the schedule. But there's one glaring hole that is missing from our schedule, and that is our hated rival VCU. So I'm still trying to decide who's going to take which side on this discussion, because you guys don't know where I'm going with this. All right, so VCU continues to refuse to play Old Dominion, but we play them in a lot of other sports.
Mm-hmm.
So this question you guys are going to take on either side of is: do we continue to play them in other sports when they refuse to play us in the one sport we want to play them in the most? So, who do you think who had Louisiana Tech? Justice. All right. So you're going to get the easier side of this question, I believe, and Aaron's going to get the tougher side. So, Aaron, uh, why should we continue playing VCU in all sports, not basketball, when they refuse to play us in basketball? Justice, you get the opposite end of that.
This goes against every part of my being to argue this side. But we really should continue to play them in all those other sports for a ton of reasons. One is it's an easy travel. It keeps costs down for our teams. Our fans can easily travel to those games, um, and they have decent programs. Um, as much as I'd like to be petty and say screw them, don't schedule them because their programs aren't like their baseball teams, not nearly as strong as ours. Their field hockey teams not as strong as ours. Their tennis team isn't. It makes too much sense to continue to play VCU even though basketball refuses to schedule. Um, I think eventually someday we'll be able to crack the code on the basketball thing, and by playing them in those other sports, we kind of keep a little bit of a flame going for that rivalry, but we can all feel it starting to wane. Like the the hatred for hatred's a wrong word. The passion to cheer against JMU has rekindled and has overtaken what we thought about VCU, 5, 6 years ago, just because, we don't, obviously they don't have football, so we don't play them in football. So basketball was always the real rallying cry. But I think it's probably important from a political standpoint and the administrations working with each other to continue to keep that relationship open as well. So for all those reasons, I say we need to continue to play VCU in all of those sports, despite their idiotic decisions and short-sighted decisions to not schedule basketball.
All right, Justice, you get the other side of this coin. Tell us why we should not play VCU in any other sport when they refuse us to play them in basketball.
Well, I mean, I understand Aaron's point about like the proximity, but I just feel like that can be replaced by other opponents, right? We can go play William and Mary. We can go play Richmond. We can go play Hampton. We can go play Liberty. There's other opponents in state, similar type of travel that we can play. And to be frank with you, I don't think there are other programs other than basketball. When we play them, I don't feel like it adds any value in terms of, they're not, the programs aren't strong, and so they're not adding anything in terms of that to our strength of schedule or to our resume, etc. And so, like, to me, like maybe that's what it will take, right? We've been doing that. We've been trying this model of playing their other sports for a couple of years now, and it hasn't produced any results in terms of being able to play them in basketball. And so maybe it's time we take a different approach, right? Like, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We've been playing the nice neighbor method. It hasn't done anything different for us. So maybe it's time to take a different approach and just say, hey, you don't want to play us in men's basketball. We're taking our ball and going home. You can find someone else to play in baseball, someone else to find and play in women's basketball, and tennis, all these other sports, soccer, and see how that approach works for us. I mean, like at the end of the day, like I don't think we're losing anything by doing that. Like we're not playing the men's basketball as it is, taking the other way. So I guess I don't see a per se negative. Um, and much to Aaron's point, I feel like the VCU rivalry is kind of, in my mind at least, like it's not really a rivalry anymore. Like it's not, and even if we were to play them in basketball, I just feel like with football and us and JMU in the same conference, like to me, that's rivalry number one, right? I don't see us playing VCU in men's basketball kind of taking the place of that. And the other thing is like if we do get it scheduled, there's no guarantee that it's going to be like an annual type thing, right? Maybe it gets done like once every 5 years or once every 10 years. Again, you can't sustain a rivalry with that kind of infrequency. And so at this point, I think it's just time to try something different. And if nothing ventured is nothing gained, right? We don't lose anything. We're not playing them now.
You win.
So I will say for baseball, that series I think is beneficial for both programs. Obviously, you have fans in both areas that'll go to opposing games. They do have some talented teams from time to time at VCU, and then we have the shared history with Paul Keys, and that's something we kind of when we play each other. That is a history of a person that we remember fondly when we play VCU. But yeah, I think you make a great point on how this
Like
isn't us continuing to play them in every sport and being the good partner in this hasn't got us anywhere.
like I'd rather just see us replace them with like East Carolina and start playing East Carolina more.
And I got the interesting thing to me when I graduated, everyone hated VCU, right? But we haven't played them regularly in basketball in a decade, or it's been a while
Yeah.
now. This new crop of students probably don't have any feelings for VCU at all.
They have no clue.
But
It's
if you
gonna
think
The
about
fan
it,
base. It's just the fan base.
but if
And
you
that's
think
and that's
about
waning.
like before VCU became our big rivalries, like JMU was a big rivalry. Like back, I'm thinking like the Kinkaluko days, right? Like, and so we've kind of rekindled that now. And so I don't know that VCU is ever gonna get to that what I would consider the true rival stage again.
And then you think about all the options we have of teams we can also play. I mean, there's so many Division One schools in the state in all the other sports that aren't football.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of options. We can still play baseball in Richmond by
And,
playing the Spiders.
yeah, well, and we are this year. Who wants to go to the Costco Center when you go to the Robin Center?
Well, I meant baseball. We can continue
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
baseball in Richmond by just playing the Spiders instead of VCU.
Yeah.
They probably have better tennis too. So maybe playing the Spiders in tennis is smarter, anyways. All right. Yeah, I think that's a good end to this topic, which takes us to topic number 3: priorities. So, July 1 brought the official start to RevShare. Old Dominion, throughout its tenure under Wood Selig, has been we haven't prioritized any sports. We try to support every sport we can. Financially, we have high paid coaches in a lot of different sports. Um, so, with the RevShare model coming on, there's going to be winners and losers, right? Or there can be winners and losers. So, there's two ways of looking at an athletic department moving forward. One, you can continue trying to be good at everything and being competitive in every sport, or you can dump your money into a handful of sports and what they call selective excellence, right? Uh, so that is going to be our debate topic right here. I wish I had a. I'm going to write a number down, and the closest to it gets to pick their which side of the coin they're going to discuss. All right.
All right.
All right. Number between 1 and 10. Aaron, what do you got?
7.
Justice?
3.
I don't know if you can see that, but Aaron got it on the dot. Number 7. Lucky number 7. Aaron, which side of this discussion do you want to take?
You know what? Because I won, I'm gonna let Justice pick.
Well, what are the two sides? I'm trying to figure what are the two choices.
Selective excellence, where
Oh,
we
selective excellence or treat
maybe
everybody
right.
the same. And when you say treat everyone the same, are you only talking about the big three, or are you talking about like across the entire board?
You're trying to fund every scholarship you have. You're trying to balance, give them all fair budgets that are competitive in every sport, um, or you funnel more money to maybe basketball and football. That's selective. That is selective excellence. You're taking more money from the other Olympic sports to fund the revenue sports at a higher level.
I will choose the selective excellence side.
All right. So, Aaron, you did win the number game. So, do you want to go first or second?
I'll go second. You go ahead.
All
All
right.
right. Jeff.
So it's select in terms of like what ODU should do. I think you have to establish priorities, right? Now, I think if you look at the college industry as a whole, what are they going to do? My gut tells me like it's going to be 75 to 80% to football, 15% to men's basketball, and then that other, 5, 4, whatever percentage is going to go to all the other sports. Maybe women's basketball gets the majority of it, but they're all kind of in the minority. Um, I I think Old Dominion, someone with limited resources, needs to needs to define, okay, what are our goals? Like, where can we make the biggest impact? And so when I think of selective excellence, I don't think it just has to be football, like football gets the majority, or men's basketball gets the majority, right? What if we like took a page in history and we put our efforts in women's basketball, right? We saw Texas Tech just do that in women's softball, right? With the $1 million pitcher. And they just brought in all these transfers with all this NIL money for women's softball. Why couldn't Old Dominion take an approach to saying, hey, we're going to pick women's basketball. We have we have that great history, great tradition. We're going to try and be, one of the front runners in women's basketball. I just think like you have to. I just don't see how Old Dominion can be successful in any sport if they don't kind of establish priorities, establish a hierarchy, and put areas of focus. Right? We don't have the resources that a Power Four school does, and so we can't just spend money blanketly everywhere. I also look at the landscape, right? Like football, while like it's by far my favorite sport, it's probably also the hardest sport I feel like in terms of like what's a realistic goal, right? Like probably winning the Sun Belt's probably the most consistent, realistic goal that we can have on a routine basis, right? We're never gonna. I mean, maybe once every 20 years you can hope you make the college football playoff, but then you're probably not going to have a realistic shot of actually winning a national championship. So why wouldn't necessarily spend that money somewhere where you have an opportunity to realistically make an impact, realistically make a national championship? You know, that now the problem with men's basketball is, yeah, but there's a lot of schools that are using that model because they don't have football, right? The VCUs of the world don't have a football team. They're putting all their resources in men's basketball, so I feel like that's going to be a harder road to hoe in terms of like making a name for yourself nationally, and also like I could be totally wrong on this, but I feel like men's basketball from a dollar amount perspective like dwarfs college football, especially on the G5 level. I think it's even more so, right? And so like I don't think that us moving, let's say, the football money to men's basketball is going to make us significantly better. Um, but I do feel like if we wanted to, choose a route of selective excellence, and did that in women's basketball, I feel like we could make a difference there. The other thing I feel like why selective excellence is needed is because we've dealt with it for the last, I don't know, I don't even want to know how long, but we've been mired in mediocrity for a long time in our three major sports, in my opinion. And if you're spreading the resources evenly and doing what everyone else is doing in those same sports, then I don't know that you can expect a big change or better results. And so I think the smaller schools like Old Dominion, they need to kind of like, hey, what's our focus, what we're going to be, and then probably the most important part of this is whatever that's going to be, communicate that to your fan base, right? so that they can set reasonable expectations. Hey guys, we're not, we're not going to be the number one team in the Sun Belt in terms of football NIL or men's basketball, but our goal was to be number one in women's basketball and number one by a wide margin. Um, I just feel like that's a much more attainable and sustainable goal in terms of selected excellence versus. I mean, in a vacuum, I think anybody would pick. Hey, we want to be great in all sports, right? But I just feel like in the current college football or college athletics landscape, that's not. It's just not reasonable anymore.
So we have an example of selective excellence in the Sun Belt in Marshall. Obviously, they fund football very well. They're towards the top of the conference, but they fund soccer at a different level than everyone else, and it's led to a national title and a national title appearance in the last few years. And if you looked at Marshall soccer 10 years ago, no one was thinking about Marshall soccer. They immediately became a power program almost overnight, and it's because of selective excellence and one major donor funding that program. Uh, Aaron, now your turn to tell us why we need to continue funding our sports all of our sports at a competitive level.
Well, I think first and foremost that you have to do that because if you don't, you run a major risk of alienating a huge portion of your fan base that already feels some sort of way about a number of things. If you're going to pick winners and losers, which arguably there's a good chance that you have to do that. If you do that, though, um, you've got to get rid of sports. Essentially, you got to get rid of varsity sports, scholarship sports. You're not just like pulling some sort of resources. If you're going to get rid of major money, you're talking about the removal of one, two men's sports, maybe. And who's that going to be? We've already seen the shitstorm over the years about wrestling. Wrestling was um, done away with. You can argue why. If you want to, just go on social media, you or the message boards, and you'll see what people think about that. But who's that going to be? It's not football. It's not going to be basketball. So is it soccer? No, is it tennis? It can't be baseball. We're building a new stadium. So you're talking about completely not even taking a scalpel to the programs, but you're taking like a hatchet and you're just completely changing the DNA of Old Dominion, a school that was on the leading edge of supporting women's sports and kind of being, um, I won't say equitable across, but giving a good amounts of support to all of their programs. So, like Mike, you mentioned earlier about being very competitive in how we pay our coaches. For example, look at our tennis team, what they're doing. Now you could argue, hey, pour more money, like you talked about women's basketball, Justice. You could argue to give more money to those programs too, because tennis probably has a higher likelihood of winning a national championship than basketball. But who makes these decisions? Is this the athletic director? Is it the president of the school now with rev share? Is it the board that advises? Like this is when you start really choosing winners and losers, it can be a super, super divisive thing that could tear this entire university apart, not just the athletic department, but the university. Let's just say that you go, um, I don't even know where to go with it essentially, but you can be first and foremost, we need to be competitive within our conference. That's the first goal. We should be looking to win championships or be competitive to win championships year in and year out. You can argue top three, top four, always being in that top quartile on what it is. And so we can do that. We can do that in all of our sports by funding them um, and not just taking and kind of axing people out. Like Old Dominion has shown a propensity to be able to do more with less. Now, we fundraise well, so we can. Yeah, I won't get too far into that, but we because uh, different schools in different states have different metrics and different things they can do with um, in-state tuition versus out-of-state tuition. It's a lot more expensive for Old Dominion and JMU to be able to compete. So we have to bring more money in. But I know myself as a fan, and I did not go to Old Dominion undergraduate. I'm like I've adopted Old Dominion with my wife. We started coming to games when we were dating, and just become our school, even though we went other places. Um, to lose the competitiveness of going to field hockey or tennis or volleyball that just started up in the last few years, and or let's say men's soccer. Men's soccer would be in serious danger, in my opinion, because they got to come up with money somewhere, and it ain't going to be baseball. So, like what Tennant and his staff are doing right now with that program, if you're paying attention and looking at the student athletes they're bringing in and the passion that's going on, that's a program that's on the up. You know what Angie is doing over there on the up. Now is not the time to be slashing the resources of those programs.
Great job, Aaron. I want to add two notes before anyone comments and tells us something. Obviously, football gets a huge budget, basketball gets a huge budget, women's basketball gets a bigger budget than a lot of these sports. But when we say competitive, we mean their budgets are either in the top percentile in the Sun Belt or whatever conference they're competing in. I think we can, if we looked at the field hockey budget, lacrosse budget, it would be competitive with whoever they're competing against. That doesn't mean they're getting a lion's share of ODU's budget. It just means they have a competitive budget. Second point, Aaron, when you say cut sports, we currently, under FBS guidelines, we can't cut any more sports. We're at the minimum. However, that doesn't mean we can't cut scholarships because of the way
That
this
and
new
that's what I'm
scholarship.
saying. Yeah,
Right. And I know you were going there, but I don't know if it was clear to the listeners. And that's why I wanted to make that clear. We could be looking at a future that this is a lot of Power Four schools are pushing towards of making other scholarship sports non-scholarship, like soccer, tennis, golf, um, to put more money into football and basketball. Um, that to me is kind of scary because we have grown to become real big fans of Tennant and Angie and Dom, the both Doms. Um, it's going to be a very interesting next few years and see how revenue sharing changes athletics. Um, but I'm hopeful that we can continue to maintain this scholarship model where tennis and soccer have those scholarships to compete because who knows what the next few years are going to bring.
Would Let me ask you like a would you rather question. Would you rather, let's say, the women, and I'm only talking like the top three, the main three programs. Would you rather to have one women's Sweet 16 run in women's basketball over a 10-year period, or in that same 10-year period, you get, let's say, one men's basketball Sun Belt championship and one football championship?
that's a Mike or to
So
me.
Both of you.
I'll let Aaron answer first. I have a very long answer for this. So
Okay, and mine won't be super long. All right, a lot of this, all this stuff we're talking about, deals with money and funding. So I got to look at the metrics, and I have to see what is going to drive more revenue to the school. What is going to drive more applications to the school? So that's kind of where I would be looking at. And I don't have those numbers in front of me. My guess is it's probably men's basketball is going to bring more people to the porch. It might be football. I don't, but it's not women's basketball. And I hate to say that. I just interviewed Roland and talking about women's basketball. But if you make me make that one choice, I think that either basketball or football, and I know Mike with your body language there, I'm probably going to choose I'm going to choose the football in the men's basketball just because I think the synergies, the excitement, the fan base, and then with the prospective students and all those sorts of things, I think that you end up having a much larger cumulative effect.
So this question's harder than ever because of Caitlin Clark. Women's basketball has taken on a whole new face the last year. I mean, you're talking about the WNBA is actually getting decent ratings now. So I think this is a much harder question than it would have been last year or the year before. However, I know football is something that is kind of like a snowball effect. If you win one conference championship, it kind of proves you as a program, and it makes more conference championships more likely in the future. Basketball, the roster has changed, the coaches changed. It doesn't kind of feel that same way unless you make a crazy Sweet 16 run. Now, then you're talking about something that could snowball. But a conference championship for football, that is something that can snowball quickly and build your athletic department into something it wasn't before. We saw it at FAU when they hired Lane Kiffin. Before Lane Kiffin, they were kind of a laughing stock. They hire Lane Kiffin, they start kicking ass on the football field, and now they're the top team to go to the AAC. Like, it changed the dynamics of what FAU was as a school very quickly.
And then you look at their men's basketball run that happened after that.
Right. It showed like, hey, if we get some commit, like, it helped the whole athletic department as a whole by winning in football first. UCF is another good example. When they were in FCS, no one really thought about them. They come up to FBS, they start playing better football, and then all of a sudden now they are a fully. I mean, they're good at baseball, they're good at basketball, they're good at football, they're good at everything because they got football rolling first. So give me the football championship and let's see what else happens after that.
I was trying to be kind of more realistic with the what I think could realistically happen. If I change the women's basketball to a national championship, would that change your mind? I mean, I don't think that's very realistic, but
I'm
That's
gonna
expensive,
say
dude.
no. I
That's
mean,
an
that's huge.
expensive, dude.
That's huge. But with men's basketball, with who we have at the helm, and I truly believe Mike when he talks about this being a dream job. Like what happened with FAU, you had that squad, and next thing you know, the guys from that are spread all across the country at different places. The coach ends up at Michigan. Um, I think if we can get that rolling, I think that our chance at stability, at least from the coaching perspective, has a higher likelihood, which is huge in my opinion.
I feel like we have the right coach in basketball right now, and he's going to bring us back to where we all think Old Dominion basketball should be. But I still stand by, like, if you get the football team rolling, it changes the entire athletic department. If you get basketball rolling, it's fantastic, and it's going to bring fans in, and it can make basketball a formidable team for a long time. But will it have that residual effect on football and baseball and other sports? I'm not sure. But I'd be happy if we just had a kick-ass basketball team. So, and I can't
And
wait
we
to see.
will. And we will. It's building, man. It's building.
It's definitely building and on the right
it's
direction.
an interesting point, right? Like, I mean, I just feel like it's more realistic to kind of do something different, perhaps, than others in terms of like trying to win a championship. Like to your point, like in soccer, or like for us, maybe like tennis, right? But in terms of like moving the actual needle and like making a bigger impact, you're absolutely right. It starts with football.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see with both of the Doms if they had an extra $150,000, what they could do with that. Like,
I,
I agree with you, Justice. Like that really moves the needle.
Aaron,
A hundred.
Me and you have been lucky enough to meet a lot of the coaches at Old Dominion and become fans of theirs. Um, One thing we've learned through this is we do raise a lot of money at Old Dominion, but if you start selective excellence, you're going to piss off some of these major donors because we have some donors that are just like, I'm only giving my money to women's golf,
Sure.
or I'm only giving my money to golf in general, or soccer, or we saw it with wrestling, but to a smaller degree. There are some major donors funding these Olympic sports, and if you start messing with them and start pissing them off, you're going to see those donations kind of shrink little by
Well, yeah.
little.
Yeah.
When I think of selective excellence, I don't necessarily think of like in terms of like that money. I'm thinking more like the money that the school's doing with from a revenue share standpoint.
Right, but I think from a couple of examples I've seen fans bring up is maybe we don't need to have a top five budget in the Sun Belt for football. Put all that money into basketball, right? Um, that is selective excellence at its finest. It's like you were
Yeah.
saying, all right, we're going to just be what we are in football. We're comfortable with that, but we're going to try to push all of our chips in on hoops. And there are fans that are pushing for that.
It is. And if you were going to do that, you should have just kept football in FCS and your basketball would probably be in the A10. But that's a whole nother show.
Yeah. Considering the investments we've made in football, I'm not sure that would be a smart move to have that place empty on Saturdays.
That ship sailed a long time
beer.
ago.
We'll just have beer festivals.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you can buy your tickets.
Yes, August 2nd.
All right. And that brings us to the bonus section. I'm going to give this, you guys both. I thought I was going to have a question for this. I'm not sure. I don't think I have it in my head right now. So I'm going to give you guys each something. You guys can close out with whatever message you have for Old Dominion fans on something you believe for the next year. Your biggest prediction for this next year in Old Dominion athletics.
You want to go first? Or you want me to go first, Aaron?
You've been going first. Let's keep it up, man.
I think football wins the Sun Belt East, and I think men's basketball is playing in the Sun Belt championship game.
Dude, those are the exact two things that I was going to say. Crazy.
Are we winning either of these? You said playing in the titles.
Oh, I said winning the Sun Belt East.
Right, but
that doesn't say winning the Sun Belt
championship game, right?
If I think I guess I would pick. If I had to pick between the two, I'll pick football. We win the Sun Belt title this year.
And I'm going to go on the other side. I'm pushing my chips into basketball. I realize it's just year 2, but Mike and I had the awesome opportunity down in Pensacola to really embed ourselves with the basketball programs and the men's basketball program in particular. Coach Jones and his staff just like opened the doors to us, and we really got a good peek behind the curtain on exactly how that coaching staff works, how much attention to detail that they have. And it really, like, we worked closely with them all year, but that gave us an idea on a whole nother level. I mean, they're playing chess and other staffs are playing checkers. The roster that we have this year is not comparable in any way to what we had last year. Like, it is so much more of a complete roster. There are a couple pieces. We have a couple things that we need to be able to add in out years, but the steps that staff has done is really, I think, going to pay dividends this year. And I had the opportunity on Sunday to go out to the 7-City Pro-Am and watch a handful of our guys play over there. And the amount of camaraderie that they have already, new guys coming in, Jared Turner in there, Jordan Battle there, those guys are already close. And this is just a pro-am. Some of the teams there were, not the level of seriousness and what some of the players were doing was really apparent. But watching Jared Turner in that game playing defense, like a lot of the guys aren't really playing hard defense out there. He was going out and playing just like it would be the Sun Belt Championship game. Like you couldn't tell the difference. And if a guy like that is doing that in that environment, then I can only imagine what these guys are going to do when they're at the TED. So I think there's a real shot that Monday in Pensacola, the men are going to be playing for a championship, and I would not be shocked to see them in a NCAA tournament this year. That's a bit aggressive. I'm sure they won't be picked there at all, but don't be shocked if it happens.
Hey, I got one more thing that I'm 1,000% confident in, and that's buy your ticket to the Roar and Pour 2025, August 2nd. You will guaranteed have a good time.
Yep, our friends at Afterglow have a big hand in this roar and pour. Josh, the owner of Afterglow and brewer, he is the president of the Coastal Virginia Beer Alliance. So he's helped set this up. All proceeds go to, most of the proceeds go to ODAF. Some of it will go to the Beer Alliance. But it's going to be a big selection of beer. Be able to drink inside the football stadium. 5 to 9, I believe, is the hours.
Awesome food trucks too, man. Like if you've never had the hamburger from what is it, Moon?
Moon Pie? No, Moon
Tide.
That's a good burger.
Who is it?
You turned me on to it when we were at Afterglow.
Moontide.
Moontide. Yeah, that's right.
I said it like
you never had their burger.
But, I know. But don't they, Mike, you're a fan of, was it the Crunch Wrap that they have, right?
Yeah, the Crunch Wrap's pretty legit.
And the wings at Lao Street Food, pretty legit too.
Nice. And they do have like reduced price tickets for folks who aren't drinking alcohol. So check out all the options. There's an option for everybody, and it's not an insignificant amount of money that has the potential to go back to ODU. Like they've been putting a lot of work in for this thing, and like Mike was saying, shout out to Josh over at Afterglow and all the folks he's partnering with to get that thing over to ODU and support Old Dominion athletics.
And there's going to be live music too.
Oh yeah, are you going to be playing?
No, I'm not musically talented. My kids are, but not me.
I'm trying to see. Do they have a list of the vendors?
The food vendors, yes. It says it includes Hades wood-fired pizza, Bar Q barbecue, 757 Lao street food, Big Belly food truck, and Moontide.
Well, I can.
Those are all good choices.
I can vouch for Bar Q. They used to be inside of Bold Mariner in Ocean View. Great brisket and barbecue by Bar Q. It's basically bark. The bark you want to see on a brisket. They make some good food. Obviously, Moontide, we already pumped them up. And then Lao's. It's some good food offerings there. And I love the time of day they picked for this, 5 to 9.
No matter how hot it is, it'll be cooling down. Yeah, that's much better than doing it, in the middle of the day.
Right, and most beer festivals are held at like 1 p.m. in the middle of the heat, and you're trying to drink as much water as you are beer. So
plus, it's a genius move. It can be an entire day of Old Dominion goodness, because over at Dick's Sporting Goods in Chesapeake, you got the whole Old Dominion Sports Festival, whatever it's called. I can't remember. Coaches are going to be over there. They're going to have games, things for the kids, all that good stuff.
ODU Fan Fest, I believe is what it's called.
There you go.
30 plus local breweries, and then it says live music with the Brandon Bauer Band.
Cool. I'm excited.
Nice.
It should be fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. Thank Justice for coming in as a guest. If you have topics you'd like to see us discuss, please send them. I need your help.
Make us
Uh,
uncomfortable.
make Aaron uncomfortable and whoever he's debating against. Maybe it'll be Justice, maybe it'll be someone else. But yeah, send in your suggestions. We need them because I'm not sure what else to discuss on the next one. So we'll see what happens.
No. Hey, if you're a member of the collective, thank you very much for helping to support our athletic programs, our student athletes, and for us to be able to do all the things that we're doing and on the website, podcast, trying to get a little bit better each and every day and give Monarch Nation more and more content. If you're not a member or you know someone who should be a member, send them over to theprideofodu.com. Go to one of our social media channels, DM us, whatever. We'll help you out. But we need everybody. Thank you for your support,
Absolutely.
y'all.
And you're getting insider information that, to my knowledge, has never been available, right? And like, so it's great stuff. If you're an Old Dominion athletics fan, like, you should definitely join the Pride.
Especially if you like recruiting information, because we got that in droves. Going to keep continuing to talk to these recruits and this staff about this football program. So if you love ODU football, please join us. Yeah, send in your suggestions for questions and discussion points. Love to hear what your thoughts are. I also want you to feel like when you've watched this show, you know there's not an easy answer on anything. Hopefully that delivers or comes across. And I hope you had some fun listening to us today. Thanks for joining us. We are the Monarchists. Go Monarchs.
Go
Go
Monarchs.
Monarchs.